good afternoon, good evening, wherever you happen to be. Welcome to our session of the 6th International Congress on Information and Communication Technology. I am Associate Professor Güler Kol Bayram from University of Sinop in Turkey, and I will try to be chairing this session, which will run from 12:15 to 2 p.m. And I would like to organizers for inviting me to chairing this session. E-government is an interconnected system in which the governments interact and with citizens and provides augmented services to them through electronic applications. With the assistance of ICT, e-governance has been implemented and digitalization opportunities in the world are being revolutionized. E-governance furnish a rare possibility for governments to increase electronic identity record keeping and expand the ability to share social and economic results. As everyone knows, everything has changed since the coronavirus. COVID-19 has affected human lives, the family atmosphere, and the pace of social and economic development, and all of which have resulted in incalculable loss of sustainable development. Still, there is no agreement about how ICT and e-governance or government can help unify cross-country differences. The COVID-19 pandemic has stressed every country's social, environmental, economic indicators and has challenged how nations can continue their sustainability and development. At the peak of crisis, governments want people to stay at home. In the times of crisis, such as the current COVID-19 pandemic and its economic and social repercussions, public governance matters more than ever. Governance arrangements have played a critical role in countries' immediate responses and will continue to be crucial both to the recovery and to building a new normal on the crisis has passed. At least for the foreseeable future, face-to-face interactions will be simply impossible. Restrictions, long quarantine times, and hygiene risks still hamper in many government activities, and people prefer to online government models, and social distance will be the new mantra of today. The e-governance role in combating the COVID-19 pandemic impact and promote the sustainability of government success. And while all people from the world are actively trying to avoid the crowd, they will also prefer to internet-based applications. And in this case, what will happen in the long run? In this conference, we will try to seek answers for these questions. And we also talk about e-governance and government in this session. And related topics such as human resource management, policy and planning, economy, urban planning, telecommunication, smart cities, social media behavior. In this session, we will be talking about some solutions, challenges, issues for e-governance and governance. Firstly, I would like to introduce two speakers. The first presentation is entitled with Skills of Human Resource Management for Industry 4.0 of Small and Medium Enterprises in the Thai food industry. And this paper is prepared by Sugmonkol Larpromsuk and Pida Wat Oisen Kamsate and Europon Sudarantana. And this paper is presented by Sugmonkol Larpromsuk. The second presentation is entitled with a framework for studying coordinated behavior applied to 2019 Philippine midterm elections. And this paper is prepared by William Emmanuel Yu. This is presented by William Emmanuel Yu. Third presentation is entitled with E-Government Research in Africa, a systematic review prepared by Akempang Awusu, Obed Kwame Atsaku Panu, and this paper is presented by Mr. Akampong Awusu. Fourth presentation is entitled with Mapping of TOGAF IDM and TM form frameworks in the telecommunication industry, and this paper prepared by Muharman Lubis. For those in Nugrahu, Livia W. Lumen Kavas, Arif Rido Lubis, and this paper is presented by Muharman Lubis. Fifth presentation is entitled with Territorial Planning, Smart Cities and New Governance, prepared by Cinzia Bellon, Fabio Andarassi, Fabio Naselli, and Pietro Ranuzzi. This is presented by Professor Fabio Naselli. The sixth presentation is entitled with Using Big Data to Compare Classification Models for Household Credit Rating in Kuwait, prepared by Najla Albarak, Hessa Alsonosi, Irene Molitas, Salvatore Philippine. This is presented by Najla Albarak. The last presentation is entitled with Using Clients' Characteristics and their financial products to predict their usage of banking electronic channels, prepared by Hessa Alsonosi and Nejda Albarak, Irene Molitsas, Salvatore Filippone. And this is presented by Hessa Alsonosi. There will be 7 speeches, and each speaker will have about 15 minutes for each presentation, 12 minutes for presentation, and 3 minutes for question and answer. Okay, let's start the presentation. The first presentation is Dr. Larpromsuk. Sir, are you here? Can you start your presentation?
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome. You can start, Professor.
Okay, good evening, everyone. I'm Sumkon Rapyomsuk from Thailand. In my presentation today, I will talk about skill and human resource management in industry 4.0 of SME in the Thai food industry. Nowadays in Thailand, SME have come to play a prominent role in the economy, both in terms of production, investment, employment, and entrepreneurship promotion. In 2020, there are about 3 million of SME in Thailand, which value 35.3% of GDP and hire more than 10 million of employees. And food industry is the biggest industry in Thai SME. Yeah. This industry is continually change. Today in Thailand is Industry 4.0. The transition into Industry 4.0 will result in low skilled workers. Some of them were replaced by robot or AI. The rapid growth of modern technology is leading to shortage of personnel with specialized skill. That means there is a gap of talent and skill in the workforce. In Thailand, there are problems in labor shortage, low skilled labor, and lack of expertise. All of this indicate the country's unreadiness to drive toward Industry 4.0. So the purpose of this study are to assess the current level of skill in SME in Thai food industry in the context of Industry 4.0. Two is identify any skill gaps among the workforce. Three is investigating the role of human resource management in addressing those identified. And the last one is investigating student perception of the level of skill they have. And the scope of this study is SME in the food industry, as well as the 40 student from one university in Bangkok, Thailand. So we also make recommendation for industry how to reduce the skill gap while HRM, and for educational institution how to adjust the curricula. From the literature review, we divide Industry 4.0 skill into four categories, which are technical skill, methodological skill, social skill, and personal skill. And we define the skill gap as a mismatch of skill that an individual process compare those they require for gaining successful employment, or mismatch from what employer require. We developed hypothesis from the related study, which found that it is necessary to consider the skill gap into two types. First is for the worker who are already working. And second is for the new workers who have just graduated. These two types of skill gap lead to hypothesis 1 and 2, that are the average level of the required skill for Industry 4.0 had a significant difference when compared to those that employees currently have, and compared to the students have before entering to the labor market. In addition, we found that to deal with the changing work process, business should focus on the rusted gap first, while investing in human resource management, which leads to hypothesis 3. That is, human resource management can reduce the skill gap in SME. In this study, we collect data by developing two questionnaires. One is for SME, and other is for the 4th-year student of one university in Bangkok. About the data analysis, we use t-test to identify the skill gap and use multiple regression to test the influence of human resource management on skill gap. The results show that social skill and personal skill were considered very important, while technical skill and methodological skill were only important in dealing with Industry 4.0. For the skill gap, we present in two terms. First is for employee skill gap. The study found that there are significant differences in all skill, and technical skill is the biggest gap. Followed with student skill gap, we found that all skill sets were significant difference, and technical skill also the biggest gaps, same as employee skill gap. However, it found that ability to work in a team, interpersonal relation, and emotional intelligence are skills that students pose to a higher level than employer requirement, which means there are no skill gap in this skill. About the human resource management, there are already 76 SME from 137 report that they have human resource management in their business. According to the multiple regression result, There are only two functions of HRM, which are influencing the skill gap. First is requirement, which can reduce the skill gap, while human resource planning lead to increase the skill gap. To sum up the idea what I have presented, we found that for Industry 4.0, social and personal skills were found to be very important, while technical skill and methodological skill were considered important, with social skill being viewed as the most important. Regarded to employee skill, there is a gap in all skill, and the enterprise should engage in upskilling their worker across the board. While skill for the fourth year student, there are three skills that students reported that they have higher level than employer requirement. Furthermore, human resource management in recruitment has the most influence in reducing the skill gap. But human resource management in planning would appear to increase the skill gap. This could be explained by the greater focus on planning, the greater requirement of firms regarding the skill proposed by their employees. Therefore, the curriculum from educational institution needs to be adjusted to ensure that there is instruction in those skills where is deficit, especially technical skill and methodological skill. The institution should have teaching and learning program for their students to obtain all types of skills. In particular, they should focus on programs that enable students to develop their own technical skills such as ICT or coding. And moreover, the institution also need to pay more attention to cooperate education, as this will help students to understand the working process better before they are great entering the labor market. And that brings me to the end of my presentation. Thank you. And this for question and answer.
Okay. Many thanks, sir, for your valuable insights. This is a nice presentation, I think. And now we can pass the question and answer parts. Is there any participants to have a question for our presentation?
Everyone is still muted apart from myself, so no one will be able to ask a question unless everyone's unmuted.
Yes. Now, we can maybe take our question in the chat box. Is it true? Okay. Is there any participants to have a question? You can ask to us by the chat box. Okay.
Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, hi, Dr. Kul. Have you done your question?
Yes, I think any participants has a question. Mr. Sugmanko, can you see it?
Yeah. Is there any particular area that I found a special gap? I think in Thailand we have a special gap. We have some more gap in about a technical skill. It's about a technology that Thai not have much expertise in technology, and it's it's very hard to training the worker because Thai worker is very low skill and their expertise is being exported to another country. So the problem of this paper is the contribution of this paper is trying to create a worker that have a skill match to the industry while educational institution. So we focus on educational physical education first. That means after they graduate, they will not have a problem about the skill gap anymore.
Okay, I think it's probably time to move on to the next presentation. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Mr. Sagmonkel. The second presentation, we can continue. And yes, the second presentation is by William Emmanuel Yu. Sir, are you here? Can we start? Mr. Yu? Can you hear me?
I think he needs to unmute himself.
Yes. Yes,
Oh,
Professor.
There you go.
Sorry, I was trying to unmute a while ago, but couldn't. So I will share my slides now. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
All right. Do you see my presentation?
Yes, absolutely.
Yes. Right. So thank you very much. So my name is Dr. William Yu, and I'm with the Ateneo de Manila University in the Philippines. And I'd like to cover my topic, which is basically a framework for studying coordinated behavior in the 2019 Philippine midterm election. So we just had a major election in 2019, and this study is basically a study of fake news, right? I mean, this is just the academic description of what it is. So before I proceed, I will just give a few statistics on Philippine elections. So we are a country in Southeast Asia. We're about 110 million population. Of the 110 million population, 63 million are registered voters. That's the figure here on the right. And you would see, in terms of clustered precincts, these are places where people vote. We have 87,540 clustered precincts. We have what is called a synchronized election. So in one election day, we replace 18,072 positions. So you could think of it as 18,072 people losing their jobs in one day. And of course, a new 18,072 people gaining their jobs in one day. So we replace the president, vice president, half of the Senate, all the congressmen, all the mayors, all the vice mayors. So it is synchronized now. And that's the reason why our elections are very big. As a matter of fact, we do have the largest ballot in the world. So we have, I think, a 40-inch ballot back-to-back, right? So it's a very long ballot. So the study basically is to build a framework for detecting fake news. So basically, this is the goals. So we want to study public groups in Facebook. So in particular, Facebook public groups and pages. The reason why we focus on Facebook is because we're a Facebook country. So of the 100 million people who are in the internet, the same 100 million are also in Facebook, right? So that's the most popular social media platform, and we prioritize that in this study. And we use a platform called CrowdTangle to basically get the data on these, the interaction data from these groups, pages, and the content as well, which is important for our study. Right? We also determine coordination. So Facebook uses the term coordinated inauthentic behavior to determine actors that generally spread fake news or use the platform in unintended consequences, in particular to spread disinformation. So coordination is determined by values that are tuned, depending on the number of results, but we would focus on a particular value for result, which I will mention later. Reingold force-directed algorithm is used on the graphs to create clusters, right? So these are weighted clusters to determine groups that are coordinated, right? Then we also try to look at coordination that is valid, right? So although it's not allowed in the Facebook platform to have, people have multiple accounts managed by one person, but there are valid reasons for this to happen, and that's what we will show as well on how to remove those. And of course, we plotted the data so that it's more visually clear. Right, so the period of coverage is February 1, 2019 to May 31, 2019. The elections are May of 2019, right? So this is the period before the elections, which most of the disinformation would be coming out in an attempt to, sway the public vote, right? We use the CrowdTangle search API to get data on the content as well as the interaction information of the data. We also we focus mostly on Facebook, but we also extract the data from Instagram, but there wasn't that many, so it was really Facebook. Just to remind everybody, this focus on public Facebook pages and groups, not individual Facebook accounts, right? So it's really pages and groups, right? So in the study we did within that period, so from February to May of 2019, we were able to extract relevant posts discussing Philippine elections. That was 63,475 posts posted by 5,387 pages or group IDs, and which is sharing a unique content of about 60,680. Of the 5,387, only 472 are verified accounts. And we focused only on content and pages and groups posted by people in the Philippines, right? Since it is about Philippine election. Although there are troll farms outside, but we just decided in the interest of keeping the data set smaller to focus on the Philippines. Our definition of coordination is that if a particular piece of media content, which is basically the focus of this particular study, if the same content is shared within a 1 minute period by a certain group of pages and sites, then this is definitely coordinated behavior. Now, in Facebook's terms and conditions, this is not allowed, but we created a fairly strict rule, right? So it's five sharing, so that's quite a lot if you have a coordinated group of 5. Okay, this is the initial results. So we'll jump directly to results in the interest of time. So these are the clustered groups we found. For those of you who are in the Philippines, a lot of this will be quite recognizable. So the first cluster is what we call the Sdi Cluster. This is an academic institution here in the Philippines that focuses on computer education. This one, I feel, which we'll show later, is coordinated behavior, but not necessarily for the purposes of spreading this information. The other group is we have an unverified ABS-CBN TFC cluster. This is a media entity in the Philippines, one of the largest, and they have a cluster of sites that are coordinated as well, right? Although strangely, they should have verified pages. Unfortunately, this media entity did not verify all their pages. Then we have what we call the Enrile Cagayan cluster. So Juan Ponce Enrile is a senator here, a former retired senator, and there is a group of sites aligned to his province, his region, and himself. Right, so that's one cluster. There is another cluster. So our current President Rodrigo Duterte. These are sites that are clustered by his groups of followers, including the Radio Mindanao network. Then we have specifically clusters that only talk about the current president, right? So there's a lot of pages and groups that are coordinating in terms of content.
I can't hear anything, William.
Yes. Mr. Yu, are you here?
It looks like he's being removed somehow.
Should we wait or?
Well, he's probably got a minute or so left for the presentation, and then a couple of minutes more to ask questions. So I mean, everything probably needs to be wrapped up by 53, 54ish. I mean, we're quite far behind anyway, but he does still have a couple of minutes left. It's
Maybe
just,
we can pass other presentation.
I suppose so. I mean, we should probably move on to the next one, and then hopefully, if he can join back, then perhaps we can come back so he can finish it. What do you think?
Okay.
Hi, we can wait only for 1 minute, then we can go after with the next presenter name.
Yes.
Okay.
True.
He's still not requested to join yet, unfortunately. It looks like he's probably having... Oh, no, he's just requested to join. Hello, William. You're back. Where is he?
Hi, Professor Yu.
Oh, yeah, I'll unmute him. Yeah. I've requested for you to unmute yourself, William.
Okay, I'm back.
Thanks.
Oh, there you are.
Apologies for that. We are also notorious for having very slow internet in this country, right? So going back to my presentation, and apologies. So here are the top 20 accounts. Just to highlight the point, there are a lot of sites here that are valid media entities that have not that did not update their verified state, right? So we purposely remove verified sites because they have been verified by Facebook itself. But here it looks like there are some media entities like the Sunstar, which is actually a valid newspaper in the Visayas region, which is the middle of the country, that did not validate themselves. But there are also very clearly politically aligned sites like News Trends and New Daily PH that are clearly coordinated and not the usual media entities, right? Then there's some sites also, if we try to remove those obviously coordinating but are valid coordination, like here, Systems Technology Institute or the SDI group, whose posts were mostly focused on election-related volunteer activity instead of propaganda. So we removed them because they are valid coordination, although they shouldn't be doing that in that particular way. In this case, they did. But if we remove that, then you will notice what's left are really coordinated sites, right? So they are nearly all coordinated. Now we did a deeper study. We looked at the content, but I'll just jump to the interesting portion. Right. So first things first is when we looked at the sites being coordinated, this is the Sunstar site. If you notice, there are different content. But the problem is Sunstar did not configure their OG, their Open Graph links properly. So what happens is in the Open Graph link in Facebook, it is just the logo of Sunstar and the content is just basically Sunstar. So what happens is Facebook thinks that the content is the same, describes shows a short clip version, which is basically just the Sunstar logo. So this is basically just Sunstar not properly configuring their OG links. So this is not, coordinated behavior per se, right? Then we have some purposely coordinated. So TFC, as I mentioned a while ago, is a valid media entity, but they did not register their sites. There are some political groups like UP Political Society, which is a major university here in the Philippines as well, who coordinate as well. So this one aren't necessarily nefarious, right? But they are properly explained as we look through the data better. So if we remove those sites and look at what's left, these are the sites that are left that are clearly coordinated, not valid media entities, did not just make a mistake with their Open Graph configuration, and we would come out with this. If we look at this a little deeper, nearly all of them are still active, right? A lot of them are inactive, but definitely one thing is for sure, all the content they were sharing was already taken down. So meaning whatever information they were spreading was already taken down. So if we access it at the time of the study, which was in the middle of last year, the content has already been taken down. Right? So in summary, basically, this is a quite replicable framework, so it can be applied to any any type of activity. It doesn't have to be elections per se. It doesn't even have to be hours, right? It can be about COVID. It can be about any topic. CrowdTangle allows us to extract pages and groups by search topic, so that was quite useful. And we get access to both the media content that was being shared and the interaction data, how many people shared it, positive, negative sentiment, who shared it, and the like. Our current rubric for determining coordinated behavior is 5 or more posts within a 1 minute period, which is a very high degree of concentration. I mean, if you have five pages sharing exactly the same content within the minute, that is definitely coordinated. But you can reduce this to either 3 to see more data, and you will get smaller pages, right? But the ones I showed in my study are the major ones. They have thousands and thousands of followers, right? Of course, we still have to remove those sites that are valid media sites that did not verify, or they are pages that had a mistake in their OG links, right? So the content that was shared was not really the content of the site itself, but really just a link.
Sorry, Mr. Emmanuel, can we summarize and can we finish because the time has gone?
Yes, so thank you very much. So actually that is it for my presentation, and thank you very much.
Okay, many thanks.
Just in time.
Many thanks, Mr. Yu, for your valuable insights. Our participants has a question to Mr. Yu for his valuable presentation.
Dear session chair, participants have question, they can ask to in chat box. You may ask question openly.
Yes.
Ma'am, do you have any question regarding this presentation?
I haven't any question, but our participants can have a question. I couldn't see any question in the chat box to Mr. Yu.
Participant can question. Participant can question. They can directly to chat box, and the presenter will answer him directly in chat box. First,
Yes.
we are allowing only you to ask question.
No, we can pass the other presentation.
Done.
Okay, many thanks, Mr. Yu. The third presentation is Mr. Osu. Are you here, Mr. Osu? Yes. But you are, I think, unmute. Please, for the technical team.
Yeah.
Hello.
Can you hear me? There you are.
Greetings. Can you start?
Yes, please. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah,
Okay.
just quickly to make it easier for you, so you don't run over. If we start at say 1 minute past 1, you have until around 13 minutes past the hour, and then we'll have a couple minutes to wrap up questions.
Okay.
Okay, so can I go ahead?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, yeah, so please, can you see my screen?
Yes, but it's just the schedule at the moment.
Pardon?
I can see your screen, yes, but it's just the schedule by the looks of it for today's event.
Oh, okay.
If you're having a problem, if you click share screen at the bottom in green, then
Yes, can you see now?
There you go. Yeah, all good.
Please, can you see now?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, so good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. And my name is Dr. Echampono Usu, and I'm coming from University of Ghana. I bring you greetings from University of Ghana. And I'm presenting on e-government research in Africa, a systematic review. So this is just a review research that myself and my colleague Obed Penu, we did. So I'll quickly take you through the outline for this particular presentation. So we look at the background and we talk about the case of Africa. And then we look at our main objective for this research. Then we also talk about the methodology, the findings, and then the conclusions, limitations, and recommendations resulting from this research. So a brief background about what this study is all about. So we talk about e-government system that have been implemented by many governments the world over as a move for citizens to access public services via single window digital platform. In other words, in Ghana, the government of Ghana has embarked on so many digitalization initiatives recently. And we scanned the literature and we realized a lot of focus are being on the developed or Western world, but not much has been said on the African context. So we decided to look at what is happening, especially in the African context, based on the government to citizen, model, not the extra government to government or government to business, but just the government to citizen model. But going forward, we just define e-government from Kuma et al. And Puwanto et al. And they said e-government is the use of IT to render services to citizens and businesses, as well as civil society groups at the local, national, and international levels. So that's the definition that we use. So for so many governments, the essence of deploying e-government system is to make public services more accessible to citizens. Like I said, so our government has now digitized something like application for passports in Ghana. Then when we are applying for driver's licenses, it has been digitized, and so many other services that the government, gives to the citizens. So why would the government do that? Because it creates benefit by reducing manual and paperwork-based processes, ensuring continuous service delivery availability to citizens, improve response time and avoidance of mistakes and errors in rendering such public services. So we look at the case of Africa, and like we all know, in the developed or Western world, when it comes to government to citizens, e-government services is well developed, but we don't know much in the African context, and that's the essence of us carrying this research. So we said in other jurisdictions, especially in developing economies, that's focusing on countries in Africa, sub-Saharan Africa, e-governance bridges the digital divide and increases the adoption rates of government and public services and policies among the citizens. And it also further serves as a means to check acts of corruption and poor public management, and the cost-effective way of interaction between the government agencies and their elements by delivering access to services and information via digital platforms. Like I kept repeating that the government here is embarking on so many of those initiatives. But if we scan the literature, we realize in terms of the research that have been done in the African context, it's very limited. We don't have much. So arguably, there have not been any systematic review that has been done on papers which discuss e-government in Africa holistically. Some scholars like J. Banfu and so forth, they try to do something like that. But one of them, the focus was rather on the role of e-government in sustainable public procurement in developing countries. So they limited their study on more about sustainable public procurement. So because of that, there's a gap in the literature, and we decided to undertake a systematic review that will holistically looks at papers done on e-government in Africa and with a focus on specific area. So this study, without a focus on specific area, sorry. So this study therefore attempts to fill this gap in the research by presenting research done on e-government in the African context. So the main objective was to perform a systematic review of research that has been done on e-government within the context of Africa by synthesizing scholarly papers, which is published between 2010 and 2020. And our methodology was simple. So what we did was we synthesized papers to identify emerging themes, methods, and gaps for future research regarding e-government research in Africa. And these were the data sources. So we sourced from electronic databases such as Science Direct, Google Scholar, Taylor and Francis, Emerald, Elsevier, Online, Wiley, Scopus, and Web of Science, among others. So this was the inclusion and exclusion criteria for selecting the papers. So we look at papers which discuss the concept of e-government and have a focus on specifically Africa. Then we also look at peer-reviewed journal articles or conference papers only. So when it comes to thesis, doctorate, masters, and undergraduate, we did not consider them. We did not also consider magazines, textbooks, and reports which were written in terms of e-government. Those were excluded. And the criteria also said we need papers that is published between 2010 and then 2020. So out of this criteria that we use, we were able to gather a total of 39 papers. And that's what we use for the final analysis of this paper. So now we look at our findings. So over the 10-year period, the year 2016 had the highest publication, whilst 2020 had the lowest. So that's what the investigation led us to, that in 2016, a lot of papers were done in the context of Africa when it comes to e-government. But 2020, it was low because this paper was done, the collection was done somewhere up to the May of 2020. So other papers that came out after May 2020 were excluded. And that's why maybe perhaps 2020 shows the lowest number of papers. Then we also look at various research teams that have been done in the context of Africa. And we realized a lot of the papers done were on adoption of e-government systems. So that formed 26% out of what the findings that we found. Then in terms of challenges and then general papers, that also form 15% each. That is 6 papers each were done when it comes to challenges of implementation of e-government. And then the next one was to do with access in terms of challenges when it comes to access to e-government. That's also gave us 5 papers. That's the teams that were identified. Then when it comes to the nature of the platform, we realized we don't have a specific platform. Most of them are general across the African context. And that one formed 41% out of the papers that was found. The next was papers that were more about ICTs, and that formed 12.8%. The rest were all just very low, papers that were having done in the African context. Then we also look at the geographical context of the study. And we realized papers that are coming from more than one country and South Africa were at peace. They were having 17.9% each. And this was followed by papers that were done in Kenya and then Zambia. They were also having 10.3% apiece and so on and so forth. So that's the geographical context in terms of where the papers were coming from. Then we also look at the underlying theories and—
Doctor, sorry to interrupt you, just very quickly. You have 2 minutes left. Sorry to interrupt.
Okay. So just in terms of the underlying theories and frameworks that have been used for the papers that have been done in Africa, we realized a lot of them were conceptual. There were no theories or models that have been used for the papers. This is followed by a combination of different models that form 15.4%. And then the next was just other theories like UTA, UTE, contextual interaction, Dillon and McKeeling, and so on and so forth. Then when it comes to the methodology that has been used in the papers, we realized a lot of them were quantitative studies. That forms 30.8% of them. Then the next is qualitative, which is 25.6%, and then literature review forming 23.1%. So that's what we also found. Then these are the gaps that were identified for future research. So the need to use other methodologies and sample sizes. That's increase the sample size, the first thing that we saw. Then the need for the theorization of e-government studies. In other words, using theories to investigate the phenomenon is also something that future research can look at. And then the need for more studies on challenges in implementing and assessing e-government platforms. That's also another area that future research can look at. So in terms of conclusion, limitations, and then recommendation, we said we undertook a systematic review of e-government publications in Africa by performing a categorization and analysis of 39 papers to determine the current level of the study done over the past 10 years. And these are some implications coming out of the study. So the paper contributes to the literature on e-government within the context of Africa, which is lacking. Then the study through the identified research gap provides areas for the researchers to consider in future research. Then policymakers and practitioners can better be informed about the adoption and impact of e-government. And then further research can be explored in terms of research, such as the use of frameworks and methodologies in e-government research.
Mr. Also, can we summarize the conclusions?
Yes, I'm almost done. So papers that were analyzed for the study as the focus was only on peer-reviewed journals and conference papers. So future research can also look at others when it comes to thesis and so on and so forth. So in a nutshell, that's all that this paper is about. And that's the end of my presentation.
Okay, many thanks, Mr. Also, for your valuable thoughts and very valuable presentation.
Please, Dr. Owusu, you keep mentioning.
Yes, I'm so sorry. This is not my mother tongue. You for the wrong pronunciation. Many sorry. Can we have a question on behalf of the participants? You can write on the chat box to Dr. Abusu. Can we have a question? Maybe I can ask a question, if you permit. What do you think about the relationship between the COVID-19 and the academic research? Because in my area, there are many research during this time. What is the current situation in your area, Professor?
I'm an information systems expert, and my background is first degree computer science, second degree computer science, and then at the PhD level, I have information systems. So I'm a technology person. So I'm somebody that I would say the COVID has not affected me in any way in terms of my research and everything, because I'm somebody who is always using the technology, and COVID has even enhanced it for me. Those people who were novices and were not adapting to this technology are now all learning, and that has really helped us. So when it comes to delivery of lectures and also gathering data here and there, it has now become easier for us. So that's what I will say in terms of the impact of COVID on me as an academic and my colleagues here.
Many thanks, Professor, for your kind answer. Any question? Okay. Can we pass other presenter?
It should be Mohammed Lubis, if I haven't mispronounced. I apologize.
Yes, Mohammed Lubis. Yes. The fourth presentation is Mohammed Lubis, sir. Yes.
Okay. Yes.
You can start.
Okay. Can I start?
Yeah. You have 12 minutes, my friend.
Okay. Thank you for the opportunity to share our research in this conference. So I will present regarding the topic of mapping TOGAF ADM, one of popular framework in the enterprise architecture, into TM forum frameworks in the telecommunication industry. Okay, so the objective, because the rapid development in the telecommunication industry somehow is really difficult, for the what we call it, the organization or the company to adapt or adopt the framework, especially the TOGAF, even though it is really popular and open. So they think it is really easy if there are certain mapping, because we want to take the good from one side and then take good side from another. And then it's also talking about the process of segmentation, because as we know, enterprise architecture framework can help the organization to align the business perspective into technology perspective, how they optimize the implementation, right? So it cannot give the gap when the execution happen over there. So it's aligned as well to the roadmap and then blueprint within the system. And then the result, so in this case, we try to map TOGAF as the popular framework in the enterprise architecture as well as the framework TM. So this is the specialized or the focus framework, even though it's not necessarily focused to the enterprise architecture, but there are particular area that can be enhanced by adding or by align with the TOGAF. So in the literature review, we can know that TOGAF involved the approach and the tools to assess the production receipt, coherent use, and continuous maintenance within enterprise architecture through 4 domains: technology architecture, data architecture, application architecture, and business architecture. And then as a blueprint model for executing the business process in every unit, system, department, partner, vendor, supplier, investor, and stakeholder to reduce several project time, cost, risk of system acquisition and plan. So by adopting standardized scheme, categorization, and idiom for implementing plan into executing process in order to paraphrase and rationalizing internal and external activity by exploiting the opportunity and chance of partnership within and between industry. So by having the in short, by having the framework, it can give us the confidence as well as
really sorry, Mohammed. A few people are struggling with the background noise. Is there anything you can do about it? I'm struggling to hear a little bit.
Okay.
Really sorry.
Okay. So there are popular framework in enterprise architecture. It is what we call as TOGAF, the open architecture that used by, let's say, like Danone, let's say like the Oracle, So why they use this kind of framework, the standard, because they want to align the business perspective, as well as the technology perspective. So let's say like one example, let's say like Apple, when they introduced Lisa in around 80s, so somehow they struggle, right? Even though they create really good, we can see from the specification, there are graphical user interface over there, there are really good spec over there, but somehow it's failed because it do not meet with the demand from the market. The market or the customer do not accept those kind of technology. So because of this, right now there are attempt or approach to align the business perspective and technology perspective. So this is why enterprise architecture come into the picture. So one of the famous framework that people or organization use, let's say like in Indonesia we have Telkom, it is the big company that focus to the technology. We also have, let's say like XL, we also have, let's say like IM3, etc., etc. So this is the big company that focus to the telecommunication industry. But the problem right now, TOGAF is general, yeah. The organization that focus to, let's say like Danone. Danone is focused to the water, yeah, the biscuit, etc., etc. So more about the food industry. Let's say like what else? Yeah, many other industry, general industry, agriculture. Let's say what else? The logistic, yeah. So they use TOGAF because TOGAF is generic. The struggle right now, the telecommunication industry want the framework to be specific to their common goal, to their focus. So they goes to the frameworks, right? But frameworks do not focus to align the business perspective to the technology perspective. So how we solve this kind of problem? So maybe it is the background, right, to make it short.
Mohammed, you've just got a minute or so to wrap up.
Okay. Okay, so this is the result, right? We try to mapping, yeah, from the principle, yeah. So this is in the left side, it is the TOGAF principle, as you can see in here. This is the framework principle. So we try to mapping how to align the general framework, yeah, like I said to you, and then the specific framework. And then this is also relating to the meta model mapping to framework, yeah, from the organizational unit, yeah, actor, business function, process, data entity, logical data component, physical data component, etc., etc. So by having this one, we know for sure what is it do not included in the framework. So TOGAF in this case can take the rule, yeah, to fulfill the gaps that because right now framework is not directly involved to the enterprise architecture. They just focus to execute, yeah, in the layer of execution. While we want right now in the level of architecture, yeah, let's say like the difference between civil engineer and the architecture engineer, right? Architecture, they draw something, they design something for the civil to, yeah, to refer, yeah, to align, so the building will be good. So if there's no architecture, we can predict the building somehow is cannot be sustained, cannot be maintained. So by having the artifact or the component from the TOGAF framework can be get better or advanced to certain extent. So this is solution and TOGAF architecture artifact. Yeah, so we categorize based on the process of mapping. So for the artifact, so it's related to the framework application solution. And then as you can see in here, the first one, yeah, related to the architecture vision, even though it's not covered. So framework mentioned different type of stakeholder. So in this case, architecture vision in the phase A can become the component in the framework artifact, and so on and so forth. Okay. Yeah. So
you could finish.
Okay. Yeah, there are several principles. Okay, I will make it short. This is the last page. There are several principles, meta model, artifact, and deliverables that are not provided by TOGAF for the telecommunication industry. Specifically, TOGAF can be used as a best framework in the design of enterprise architecture, which is then mapped to framework which provide domain-specific, yeah, and detail for the telecommunication industry. With the mapping of TOGAF to framework, the design and implementation of AI has become more in accordance with the needs of telecommunication industry. Finally, it can help company be more flexible, agile, although certain circumstances and environment should be considered first, such as the current business process and the strategic planning of the company. Okay, I guess it's some the research, yeah, that I present in here. Okay, thank you for your attention.
Thank you.
Kind insights, kind thoughts. There any question from participants? Now we have question and answer parts. Okay. Maybe I can have a question. What is the suggestions to new researcher related to your topics, Professor?
Okay, thank you for your question, Doctor. So right now, as we can see from the practical level, somehow the perspective only focus in one discipline. Let's say when we graduate from the let's say information system, we just focus to the information system. But right now, we see there are kind of multidisciplinary situation. Let's say like we have pandemic right now, right? We cannot just leave it the process to solve only to the medical student or medical professor. We as the information system should come up with the solution as well. I guess we also have this kind of I guess in University of Taiwan, they already have this kind of multidisciplinary discipline. Let's say like medical design, when they try to design the tools in the medicine that involve user experience as well as interaction design. So similar like in this situation, we as the technology student should have this kind of business perspective as well. So we cannot neglect the finance, the economic theory, the what we call it, the accountants. We need to learn, even though it's not deep like the other student. So I guess this is my suggestion based in this study. Okay, that's all.
Many thanks, sir. You have a very lovely child. Okay, thanks. Is there any question? We haven't any question. Maybe we can other presenter, but Professor Fabio Naselli, the next presenter, is here.
It doesn't look like he's here at the moment.
Yes. Should we wait or we can pass another presenter?
Well, it looks like he's not here, so I think let's move on, and then hopefully he'll be here by the end, and if that's the case, we'll just come back to him. Unless someone's here to step in for him, that is. If that's the case, if someone's here to step in for Fabio, if they could just say in the comments, in the messages, but if not, then we'll have to move on.
Maybe.
Oh. Okay. I think if no one's going to take Fabio's place, and perhaps we should move on to Al-Barak. I've probably said that wrong.
Okay.
I've requested Arthur to unmute.
Hi.
Hello. Oh yeah.
Hello.
Hi.
Can I see my screen?
Hi, ma'am. The next presenter is Najda Al-Barak, ma'am. Professor?
No, it's researcher.
Sorry. Hi, ma'am. Are you ready?
Yes, I am.
Okay. We can start maybe.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Thank you for your time. Thanks for giving me this opportunity to share my work and concerns from Kuwait, the Middle East. I'm a senior financial analyst at the Central Bank of Kuwait, and my work is sponsored by the Central Bank of Kuwait. Seemingly, I'm a researcher at Cranfield University for my PhD level. The paper title that I worked with is about using big data to compare classification models for household credit rating for Kuwait. This is an ongoing study all around the world. but it is the first time established for Kuwait. The most important thing is to focus is the data set that we used is larger than what has been used. We used machine learning as a tool for the financial problem that we're facing. And we adopted it on the household loans for Kuwaiti under conventional and Islamic banks. So let me just do this. Yes. Okay. So financial crisis is not a new phenomenon or a new term. It is something ongoing, and it might occur in the future. We cannot predict when and by how much or what the severity will hit, but it is important to highlight that we need to do our own study and own homework to overcome or prevent or minimize the impact of such financial crisis, given that we've witnessed, or I witnessed, the 2008 crisis. The main obstacle is how much this lesson cost us and who oversees the paying the bill. Given that I work at the Central Bank of Kuwait, this means that if any hit appears for the banks, they will come back to Central Bank for bailout. So it is a mandatory work for central banks to overcome and oversee the work done within the banks. Kuwait stood strong without the need for any support from regulatory bodies for backup from 2008 crisis and from the oil drop before COVID and within COVID. This is due to the stringent regulation in place and the timely adoption of international regulations with additional safe buffers than internationally accepted benchmarks. So currently, we are adopting the international regulations with a higher buffers to ensure the safety and the stability of the banking sector in Kuwait. But is there a room for improvement? Not always being more stringent is efficient. We need to balance it out with other aspects of the banking regulations. My focus is on credit and credit risk. So what we do, actually, we request banks on yearly basis or on quarterly basis, actually, to cut from their profits to overcome the credit risks in the future, the potential of consumers not paying their loans. So to do so, they need to cut from their profits. On the other hand, this will affect their liquidity. So what is the appropriate measure to weight this credit risk and this exposure? The most importantly is the risk weights. Currently, we do not have internal rating systems for Kuwait. We use a standardized approach, which is a fixed risk weight for all type of creditors. This is not such efficient way, although it is very stringent and rigorous, but this will affect the liquidity of banks, that we might face them to have a shortage in liquidity and overwhelm their capital budget. So in my paper, I propose an internal system where they can actually predict the default rate for each customer given a certain parameters. Several machine learning and deep learning options is appropriate to examine credit probability of default. In very recent International Monetary Fund working paper, the advantages in financial technology are discussed and how much machine learning solutions could reduce the cost of credit and to provide much clearer solution than the black box templates for non-technical audience. So here I'm trying to emphasize the role of machine learning and programming for solving such financial problem. So providing a credit rating model is fruitful for regulators and banks' decision-making evenly due to the advancement in technology and the outperformance of the models developed and tested. So we need to balance and we need to make use of such development in technology. The aim of the study is to produce the most appropriate credit rating model to predict household default rate. In order to do so, we made a comparison between different classification models. for 2 banks, conventional and Islamic banks. We used the logistic regression classification, decision tree, linear support vector machine, Bayesian network, and one of the boosting techniques, which is Rust boosted. And here I'd like to emphasize that we chose Rust boosted in particular because we have skewed data. The default cases are lower compared to total observations. So given that, Rust boosted and within the literature showed its efficiency. Moreover, that we have lengthy data set, which Rust boost will be more efficient for, or sorry, the boosting will be more efficient for the data set that we have. For our study, we based it on household customers in Kuwait, sample of 2 banks, one conventional and one Islamic. And here I'd like to emphasize that this is the first time that such model and study is conducted for Islamic banks. The period we chose is 11 years, from 2008 to 2018. We make sure that we take into our data set the pre-2008 financial crisis, because it hit Kuwait after 2 years, around 2010 to 2012. So we took the pre and during and post-2008 crisis for monthly basis. There are 2 types of household loans, consumer loans and installment loans in Kuwait, but we chose installment loans because it is given with a higher amount for customers that will have a higher impact on the economy if something goes wrong. So installment loans in particular are those loans for the purpose of maintenance or purchase of private residence with a limit of 70,000 Kuwaiti dinars, which is approximately 165,000 UK pounds. The parameters or the individual variables chosen for this study, there are some that has been effective from the literature review, and some are introduced for the first time. The credit card exposure is a new parameter that has been introduced for the first time. The income level of the client, the age, the gender, the education, nationality, the relationship duration between the customer and the bank, the monthly number of transactions done in bank accounts, and monthly average cash flow in bank accounts. Those last 3 variables are also new introduced variables that haven't been tested before. The last parameter is number of loans prior to the loan tested. Here, the comparison in bank 1 and in bank 2, for our key performance, we use the area under curve from the ROC curve, and we can see that each classification model has different outcome, but the most efficient and the highest AUC is for Rust boosted under 2 banks with 0.86 and 0.80. To test our model and to test the efficiency, we used the key-fold cross-validation. We used a 70% training set of the data and 30% validation set of the data. For bank 1, here in the graphs, you can see that the training set has an AUC of 0.98 and the validation has an AUC of 0.92. For bank 2, also very good AUC rates with 0.91 and 0.91 for the training and validation sets.
2 minutes left. Sorry to interrupt. 2 minutes left.
Yeah, sure. I'm in my last slide. So in conclusion, classification methods are increasingly implemented in other fields than computer science. Classification methods have been used to categorize credit default classes, good or bad, in order to benefit regulators and bankers to better anticipate risks. Our study relied on big data from Kuwaiti banks for 11 years to tackle the gap of not lengthy data. The parameters also have included new items more than what has been used currently. Moreover, those data came from banks indicating the importance of data existing within banks. This is a new thing that hasn't been tested before. from the key performance measurements, RUS boosted were chosen as the outperforming method. A supporting result for training sets have indicated the efficiency of the model selected. This is the references, and it is sponsored by the Central Bank of Kuwait, as I classified. And thank you very much for your time and for hearing my paper.
Many thanks, ma'am, for your kind presentation and valuable thoughts. I see there is a question to you. Can you see this?
I'm sharing the screen, so let me stop share. I guess that's better. Yes. Where am I? Can I find the question, please?
From Mr. Lubis. Is there any vulnerabilities in the financial system, or what factors cause that?
Is there any sorry? Where is the question? I can't find it.
In the chat box on the right-hand side, you might be able to push an arrow. Would you like me to read it again?
Yes, please.
Oh, sorry. I'll just scroll down.
Can I read that?
Yeah, you go for it.
Okay. I realize that crises in the financial often happen in the cycle of 10 years less or more, globally or locally. Is there any vulnerabilities in the financial system, or what factors cause that?
Well, we cannot say there is a specific time frame for the financial crisis. It can come in a very short period. For instance, in Kuwait, we've witnessed the 2008 crisis, as I said, in 2010, and then a couple of years after that, we've witnessed the drops in oil prices, so less than 10 years. So we cannot specify it, but I guess the globalization, the open markets, the open investments available, this will lead to a highly spread the financial crisis if it is done locally to an international scale, same what happened in 2008. It was caused by hedge funds in one of the areas, but due to investments from Kuwaiti banks, the crisis hit from US to our investments in Kuwait. So this open and globalized market and financial market could help and create the cause of the financial crisis and fasten it. So maybe this time span will reduce given this globalization. Yes, maybe due to advancement in technology and new technologies, there could be a prone to cybersecurity effects and stuff like that, which could be affected from different jurisdictions. This also might happen, but I guess it is due mostly to the globalized and open markets that we all aim for.
Okay. Many thanks, ma'am. Is there any question to this presentation? Okay. Can we pass other presenter? The seventh presentation is by Hassa Alsonossi, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Hi.
Hi. Can we start?
Yes, sure.
Okay.
Okay. I just want to make sure I'm sharing the screen, right? The PowerPoint?
Yes, surely.
Okay, so hello everyone. It is a pleasure to be a participant in this valuable conference. So my name is Hassa Sanoussi. I am a researcher at Cranfield University. My paper title is Using Client Characteristic and Their Financial Product to, using client characteristic and their financial product to predict the usage of banking electronic channels. We all know that technology is advancing faster than business can handle. The question here, can we keep up with how fast technology is evolving? Technology changes the way we live. It changes the way we reach information. It changes the way we conduct banking transactions. So banks will have to develop and grow to keep pace with this fast growth in technology. Electronic banking, and specifically here I'm talking about the call center, the internet websites, mobile application, now has become an essential source to exchange financial information and conduct banking transaction, simply because it's faster, maybe easier for some customers, and more time efficient. So banks need to properly utilize these electronic channels to reach this in a most efficient way. We need to do studies. Banks need to realize that fast growth in technology advancement may be difficult to be embraced by all customers. Each customer has his or her certain demographics, has their own pool of different financial products. Banks need to be aware of this, and banks need to be able to meet the need of each client based on their characteristic, their financial product, to better advertise their electronic channels. So this study is conducted to determine the appropriate electronic channel for each customer given their characteristics and financial portfolio. We reach this by building a prediction model, so banks can predict customer preferences of the use of electronic channels based on their information. This will help banks to know the best target for each advertisement, and this of course will decrease the advertisement cost and other expenses, increase customer satisfaction by covering their needs, and eventually this will boost the bank's profit. Starting with the literature review, previous studies have noticed that due to technology development, banks are offering new banking services, of course, to keep pace with this fast growth. The limitation and restriction of the available communication channels caused the shift towards a new, more advanced communication channel. Former studies used some independent variable to determine how significant is the impact of using more advanced technology communication channels. For example, they found that accessibility and benefit convenience are important elements to shift towards mobile banking. They also found that the client age has insignificant impact on the use of any more advanced technology. Security is a major factor to delay the shift towards new technologies. Trust and ease of use are significant elements to shift towards mobile application. Earlier studies suggested that future studies is required to provide an insight into the factors leading to the adoption of a new advanced technology, and this is what we've done. Actually, we collected a substantial amount of data, financial data from 3 banks. The data collected covered a span of 11 years. We focused on retail customer only in this study. The data include the number and the value of their monthly...
Apologies, just 2 minutes left. Just 2 minutes left.
Okay, so I'll just move quickly. The number and the value of their monthly...
Apologies, that's my mistake. My mistake. You have 5.
I think it's... Okay.
Sorry.
No problem. Okay, so again, we focused here on the retail customers. The data included the number and the value of their monthly online transaction in each electronic channel. The data include the customer age, address, customer gender, nationality, income on monthly basis, and customer monthly transaction, including data of the transaction, value of payment per transaction, transaction payment currency, type of card used, transaction type such as purchase, withdrawals, payment, deposit, and transfers, number and balance of all the type of accounts, the outstanding balance and the limit of credit card, the amount, principal, interest of the consumer and installment loan, and date of relationship. You can see from the table, this is a sample of the 3 banks, and you can see that it's a huge amount of observation. For example, the bank one, we can see that 2,900, around 295 customers. The second bank, 95 customers, and the third bank, 393 approximately customers with and here also list down of all the observation in each online channel, call center, internet, and mobile. And bear in mind here, we're using 2 conventional bank and 1 Islamic. We want to distinguish between the type of banks. Regarding the methodology, given the size and type of financial data we have, we decided to use a machine learning techniques in dealing with processing the data and generating a prediction model. If I want to define a machine learning in a simple way, it can be a computer using algorithm in a way that makes it works like a human being, intelligence and understanding. Supervised and unsupervised machine learning algorithms are the most common form of machine learning. In our case, we use supervised learning, which observe an actual set of data, consists of input, output, and output. This is the type of data we have already, we collected, and trying to practice on how to reach output given a number of input features. We tried different methods, just quickly, which are multinomial logistic regression, support vector machine regression, binary decision tree for regression, multivariate linear regression. To choose the appropriate method and to validate our results, we took the out of sample prediction accuracy as a key performance. Results showed that multinomial logistic regression drives reasonably robust performance in this study compared to other methods. Let's move to findings. Okay, so as customer, we found that as customer gets older in age, they tend to use call center as their primary source of communication. This result was quite expected given my experience and the literature review. From this information, we inferred that the explanatory usage tool of internet and mobile channel are not well promoted. Therefore, we can strongly recommend banks to establish explanatory recorded video on using internet and mobile, and to focus on senior customer as their primary target for this type of advertisement. Okay, so let's move to the second, which is gender. What drives us to study both conventional and Islamic is that the Kuwait now, 50% of banks are Islamic, and more than 40% of banks' total asset goes to Islamic banks. This growth of Islamic bank not only in Kuwait, but it's also internationally. Given the different in banking, given the differences in the type of banking products, and given that a little literature review have been done for Islamic banks, we wanted to distinguish between those 2 types of banks in our study and see if there is any noticeable finding. Actually, we noticed that there is no difference between conventional and Islamic, except for one variable, which is gender. We, in conventional bank, males are using mobile than females, but in Islamic bank, using internet more, males are using the internet more than mobile. Previous literature have found that female are interested in social norms, but males are more interested in the valuable advantage of any particular channel. So in this case, Islamic banks male need to be more convinced about the advantages they will get to move to the mobile app. This important finding will enlighten Islamic banks to invest more in their mobile application. Here we can see this is the probability of electronic banking using considering customer age. We can see from the graph that as customer gets older in age, they tend to use call center.
You have 1 minute.
Okay, I'll just move quickly. We were expecting that the number of accounts, despite the account type increase, the use of mobile will increase. Result shows that as the number of current and saving account increases, the probability of customer using mobile will increase. But regarding the deposit and joint account, the result shows totally the opposite. It shows that their use for internet and call center will increase. Even for the customer loans, the more the customer have loans, they will tend to use call center. And we can see from these two graphs, this is the consumer count and installment count. They prefer to use a call center with decreasing trend and increasing trend in mobile. Customer age, the longer the customer age, the more the probability to use a call center. And we found weak correlation regarding the income, the credit card limits or outstanding, and even the nationality. From the literature, we recognized the gap, we identified the method used. After that, we determined the new parameters need for this study. We collected a substantial amount of financial data. We used a machine learning to create a prediction model, including all significant variables, so banks can predict which banking channel will be used most frequently and effectively by each of their customers. This will help banks to decrease expenses and eventually increase their profits. And that's it. Thank you.
Many thanks for your valuable presentation. Is there any question to last presenter related their subject? Maybe I can have a question.
Yeah,
what is the main obstacle when you were doing research?
Actually, the main obstacle is collecting the data, especially it is a financial data. It is a confidential data. There is a lot of agreement contracts, non-disclosure agreement. So yes, this is the most obstacle that I faced in doing this research.
Okay, many thanks.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Yes.
Is Fabio here, or anyone that would like to stand in for Fabio to do the presentation on territorial planning, smart cities, and new governance?
Okay.
It doesn't appear so. In which case, I will wrap up this meeting. So I've just got a few words just to say to everyone quickly. I sincerely thank all authors for excellent presentation and contribution in this session, and all participants for being part of the International Congress. I hope this session was informative and knowledgeable. All the presenters will be getting their digital certificates through the mail within 2 working days. Further, all the papers have already been forwarded to the Springer. The publication will be live within 4 to 6 months. I would also just quickly like to thank our chair. Oh, sorry, bear with me. I would just like to thank our chair, Dr. Gould. Oh, wrong one. Yeah, I would just like to thank Dr. Gould for chairing the session. And this is just simply a token of appreciation for the chair on behalf of Team ICICT 2021 and Global Knowledge Research Foundation. Thank you for your presence. And just before we leave, if I could kindly ask everyone just to quickly turn their cameras on just briefly, so I can take a screenshot just so that we can put on the company website, if possible, please. I'll just wait a second for everyone to turn their cameras on. If a few people haven't got their cameras working, then that's fine. I'll just wait a second. Yeah, if everyone can turn them on, I'll wait just a second. Anyone else? Give it 30 seconds. Come on, guys. Cameras on.
Okay.
I think we'll leave it.
Can I make a closing remarks?
Yeah, please do. If you'd like to say anything.
Yes. I would like to thank many dear presenter and presentation. Firstly, we talk about small and medium enterprises in the first presentation in the food industry in Thailand. And the second presentation is determined a hybrid framework to studying coordinated social media behavior. The third presentation is determined a systematic review of research that has been done on e-government within the context of Africa. And the fourth presentation is use a modeling and mapping model. And the sixth paper made a comparison between different classification models for two types of banking. And the seventh paper was predicted the customer use of electronic channels treated as a dependent variables and considering individual customer information that was treated as independent variables. I would like to thank all participants for their presentation and for participation. Thanks to everyone who participated and show interest. I would like to express my endless gratitude to the organization team for this flawless conference they organized. Our session is over. Many thanks.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.